Alright, we're live. Haha! It's been a day. Hey guys, how y'all doing? Sitting here waiting for everybody to show up. We're live. Play with a rock. I think a full moon just happened last night. Of course, we couldn't see it because of the wonderful coastal weather that we have here. But hey. Hi, Johnny. How you doing? I'm sorry. Ian hasn't been getting his notes. But hey. How are you all doing? Got another person in here. Well, I don't think I changed anything on my end that I know of. Johnny says, good, hope you're both in good health. I think we are. I had an annoying morning picking up stuff at the pharmacy, but you know, that's life. It was one of those things. They didn't tell us the rules or didn't tell me the rules. I didn't know exactly how I was supposed to do it. Then they, called me on it. Like, yay! Maybe you should take a piece of paper and write it out and hand it to me so I know what's going on. But minor when it comes to all the things that are going on. And we're going to have our solstice family gathering tomorrow. I'm getting ready to cook turkey and all this other stuff, so I just made a pie. Hey, Josiah. Yeah, I'm glad you made it too. Ian made it.
Yeah, well, that's the first time I haven't got it all. I loaded the browser great times.
Ah, technology, it's a wonder. Sometimes it doesn't want to work. Who knows for sure what's going on. Hi, Kyria. Good evening. What time is it there for you from Norway? Oh, well, welcome from Norway. We were just talking about places that were probably cold a few seconds ago. It is 2:30 in the afternoon, or 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock. I don't even know what time it is. 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We're on the west coast of the United States in Oregon. And so it's nice and rainy and drippy and gray here at the moment. And probably will continue to be that for the next week, I guess. So thank you for joining us. It's probably pretty late there. Eva says, hello, hope you're doing well. Yep, doing pretty well. I just finished cooking a pie for our feast tomorrow. So I timed that right, at least, because it's like it takes 90 minutes to cook this pie. And it has to sit for 6 hours before you can eat it. Like, the never-ending temptation pie. But hey, things are going along. I get to hear myself echoing in the other computer.
Sorry, I'm trying to keep it down, but since we had to read the thing that the
still working. So Kyria said, synchronicities, I just opened YouTube and remembered you might have a live. Our weather these days is dry and about freezing temperature. Cool. I'm glad it was synchronicity.
But we're not so fond of freezing temperatures anymore.
No, I lived up north where it was minus 40 for an average of about 2.5 months during the winter. So yeah, I don't miss it anymore. So Johnny says, had a pixie come to me in meditation to give me a health update on a family member, and I called to confirm if it was true, and it was. Awesome.
Awesome.
I was so happy to finally see a pixie and have it not be made up. Now that's confirmation.
Well, I didn't actually know there were pixies until that fire pixie got caught in my lamp.
Yeah.
And it told me it was a fire pixie.
And it's like, well. So Susanna says, oh my, hi, I'm finally on your live stream. Hello. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. We love new people. Makes things fun and interesting. Make sure I didn't. Nope. I didn't forget anybody. Hi, Susanna, Kyria says. My first time joining too. So yay. Where are you from, Susanna, if you don't mind telling us? Found out Kyria is from Norway. Vanessa says hello, hi, Vanessa.
And feel welcome to ask questions.
Absolutely. This is one of those things. It's your show. You decide what our subject's going to be and where we end up going with it. I'm just here to
facilitate.
That's it. Facilitate. It's a good word. I think we just had a full moon, too. Last night. I think last night was our full moon. It's so close to the solstice, which is kind of interesting. And we're going to do our solstice celebration minor thing tomorrow, just with me and Ian and my granddaughter and my daughter. I don't think she's going to bring her boyfriend because I wasn't sure if we might be doing something, magic. Donna says, I'm from Slovakia. Well, welcome. I love having people from other countries and different cultures. I think it's awesome. You guys, everybody has such different mythologies. Jonathan says, hi, everyone. Hi, Jonathan. And he's from South Africa, so we're getting like the entire that continent and a few people from the United States sprinkled in here, so this is great. Josiah says, it's my first time on a live as well. I'm also from Sheffield in Northern England. Well, welcome.
Congratulations. Have all you first timers on live.
Yay. Let's see what kind of questions you guys generate. So I did my latest video was on magic and fear and how fear can impact the paranormal and what we do and when we're trying to develop our abilities and how it can stop us from doing things. Eva says, tune in from Germany. Well, hello, Eva. We're having a whole worldwide event here. All right. Always interesting when I decide to do a subject like that and I ramble. I'll touch all these different things and go around in circles and come back to where I start. Like the way I talk. Well, but anyway, from the comments, it seems like it got a few people's interest piqued and it hit a couple of notes and some spots. Violet says, hello, both of you. I am such a studier, but I do not experiment because I'm afraid after the demon. I don't want to invoke or evoke and have more chaos in my life. I watched Fear and Magic. Well, thank you for watching it, and you shouldn't do anything you don't feel comfortable doing, so there. It's perfectly okay.
That's really true, because you do something you don't feel comfortable about, then all those doubts and whatever will definitely what you're trying to.
Violet says, I want to evoke rather than invoke. My body can't handle it. Well, doing an invocation is definitely more fraught with potential hazards because you're pulling something inside of yourself. So evoking is safer.
Yeah, it's pretty complicated.
Depends on how much of an evocation you're doing. Actually trying to physicalize a spirit, that's a very difficult thing to accomplish.
Yeah,
it's fun to try.
There's not really have enough clairvoyance spirit being. One of the things Barden warns about for that is that you could potentially, when working on an evocation, create thought form for yourself like an elemental, realizing it, make it will be. So, recommend clairvoyant, active, Brian.
So Violet says, I feel like I need to be in somewhere, and she added evoke into the ball. Jonathan says, Siofra, when you talk about your paranormal investigations, you remind me so much of the psychic from the Poltergeist. Yeah, she was pretty cute, wasn't she? A little short powerhouse. I think she's shorter than me.
That movie was, I watched that so long.
I really didn't like it much. I mean, it actually scared the... Yeah. Because it was so much like an experience I'd actually had at the, not...
I'm just not into those kind of shows in general.
So Joey says... Supernatural. Hi, everybody. Looking forward to today's show. Hi, Joey. And Johnny says, what do units think of Crowley?
Well, I have an answer for you from me. I studied Crowley for years, got highly involved with it, and met some high-up people, OTO and this and that. My conclusion is that Crowley has a lot of good stuff and useful stuff, and one of the first magical things that ever worked for me successfully was from Crowley. So it's very valuable, but I think he can't hold a candle to Barden.
And there's been a lot of smack said about him that's completely and totally patently false.
Yeah, most of the stuff is false, and unfortunately, he encouraged it. The main reason I have difficulty with Crowley nowadays is just the stupid reputation out there, and he encouraged it, unfortunately. Crazy. Kinds of crazy rumors and things about stuff. He just not believable. A good Crowley book.
Wait a minute. Crystal
sorry.
has a thing in here.
Sorry.
Hello, everyone. This is my second live stream, but I fixed my name from before. It just came from your Sacred Tree meditation video. That is some really good. Yeah,
Cool.
I really like that stuff too. It's one of my favorite meditations. We did it as a group, and just extremely powerful and healing, and just covers so many
If
bases.
it says you're cutting out, you may talk louder because the noise gate is probably set too high. Probably.
All right.
Or you can move the microphone.
Does that help? I'll find that out in a minute.
Well, God, that's a good question. I don't know if there is a good Crowley book to begin with. It's all very complicated and difficult to start out with magic and practice. The book has a lot of the basics. I'm not looking at Crowley books. So definitely don't start with his autobiography. It's awful.
I'm not sure if you guys can hear him since his head is facing the opposite direction and he's talking into the bookcase. But he said Theory and Practice was usually the first one, but it's complicated,
It's difficult.
difficult.
Yeah,
And don't start with his autobiography.
because it's awful.
It's awful. An awful autobiography.
But depending on what you want to start with, one of his better little tiny books are his lectures on yoga, yoga for yellow bellies and that. But to really learn Crowley's stuff, how he did it, his magic and theory and practice, I suppose would be probably the best start, but you'll probably need to do some digging and ask some questions and stuff.
Okay, so Kyria says, I've been recently thinking about some of the ghost hunting shows that are popular now, and how these people are always 100% zoned into that it is ghosts living in the house, in those homes. But as someone who is more prone to seeing or having contact with nature spirits rather than the idea of ghosts of the dead, I've been wondering whether they're not pushing their own beliefs into it, being ghosts and not other spirits, influencing the household. Just where I had my thoughts and been wondering about that. Well, that's certainly quite possible. And also, the personal beliefs of the people that are in there often turn normal haunting activity into, what do they call it, the doorway to hell, or the they have all these terms that they like to use, but opening up a gateway to hell, etc., or having demons running around amok. And a lot of times that's not what was going on before. And certain nature spirits can definitely be identified by a certain group of people as being demonic because they're not human, they don't look right to them, and if that's the worldview that they have, that there's only two different kinds of spirits, then that's where you're going to end up. So yeah, I mean, I found nature spirits stuck in houses on a number of occasions, and depending on the beliefs of the people who live in the house, they can also move the haunting in that direction because they want it to be true. So there's always that. Eva says, stream seems okay to me. Curia says, we can hear you fine, Siofra here. I think it might be the other microphone. It sounds like it's voice activated. His voice is just picked up sometimes. Well, his voice has to get to this.
It's the noise gate set too high.
It's the noise gate is set too high? Okay.
We're not going to try and do that.
Jonathan says sound is better for me now, so moving the microphone closer to my face was a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, a lot of the popular ghost hunting shows are there just for entertainment, and who knows for sure how much of the stuff is faked and how much is real. They always try to say that the stuff is real, but I caught them doing fake stuff, like on air while they were doing it even. So,
yeah, a lot of that stuff. Not just that, but all kinds of the reality shows are faked, especially like a lot of the survival shows, things like that.
I actually was approached by a company once to do two different reality TV shows. One was on ghost hunting, and one was on being a witch and what it was like to be a witch. And they just decided that we didn't have enough personal drama to qualify for a show for them. So they really don't want reality and what it's actually like to do it. I mean, when I go into a house, it's like, if I have all the equipment, it takes me longer to figure out what's going on because then I'm distracted by looking at the equipment instead of tuning into what's going on, in the environment, in the energy field and so forth around me. And so it's actually less beneficial to me, although I find it interesting when my EM, field reader will tag itself. So that's always interesting. Curious says, so interesting, as you mentioned a fire pixie earlier, I guess they would definitely be seen as fire demons or something. I don't know, they're kind of small.
This one was small and seemed very playful, and as it left my lamp, it like made a pattern in the air as it flew off with, like it left like a little streak behind it, made a pattern, so it seemed playful and fun.
Although I saw one of those shows put together by a Christian group, this like haunting, like, or the ghost that ruined my life or something like that. They put together these true paranormal stories. I've never heard of anything like that happening, and one of them had pixies in it, all kinds of pixies, and they attacked this guy, stabbing him with their little bodies all over. And I'm going like, what? This doesn't make sense to me. And I'm like, boy, I would love to have that many pixies flying around, and I never get that. So I'm like, and then I looked into the production company and realized that they had, they were wanting to present all of that stuff as being bad. So I don't know. I decided not to believe much of anything that they said. So, Zuzana says, I watched some of your videos. I'm really happy that I found you and that I can hear about your experiences. Well, I'm glad that you found us, so thank you. Oh, we've got the stupid idiot on there again.
Yeah, my difficulties with the browser.
So Violet says, where did you begin for a very first invocation or evocation and what happened? Well, I mean, I'd been doing invocations. Drawing down the moon is an invocation. And so I've been doing that one for years. And not everyone can actually do it. It's not necessarily an easy thing to actually let the goddess energy in and then allow that energy to interact with other people. Having been a channeler for years probably helped, I think, when it comes to that, for that kind of invocation. Other types of invocations aren't as interactive, just invoking the energy of a deity into you in order to feel and sense the connection, get an understanding of what that energy is about by being on the inside of it as opposed to looking at it, opening up lines of communication inside yourself. When we did the evocations, we were using Arden's book to try and actually manifest being physically. And so we did the whole thing the way he has it laid out. So we had the external triangle that to build the energy up for the being and put it in. We did the different colored light. I think we were doing Earth Zone because that's the safest and easiest to start with. And so we tried to create the light from that zone by having colored covers on all of our lights and stuff like that. And I actually saw the being because of my clairvoyant ability, and we definitely got a response from it. And Ian didn't see it, and we didn't get a physical completion. It was working on it. I mean, I could see the energy building up, and it was working on it, but we have not gotten to that level of getting a full-on thing in there. So.
Well, and I don't feel that I've got my abilities adequately under control to do a really effective evocation. That was more of a kind of an emergency-ish situation. I had to find something else to do. Work was awful. That was part of it.
And health. It was both work and health. Even though we didn't know we were going to need so much of the health assist, thank goodness the surgery went so well, and he's doing 100% better at this point. So we're very happy with that. So Zuzana says, since I was a kid, I was really interested in fairies, and then I was influenced a lot by my family because I grew up in a Christian family. Now something brought me back, so I'm looking for new information, and I'm very interested in our folk so that I can get closer to the creatures from the area. Yeah, and that's the thing, is like, there was definitely a campaign to distance people from fairies and elves and she and everything else because the church didn't want to have any competition. I mean, having a supernatural and benign entity out there that might assist you to do something was not something they wanted anyone to have access to, and so they had to make sure that everyone was afraid of other things other than what they were offering. So it just sort of muddied the waters when it comes to exactly what they are and how to interact with them, and if there's rules, etc. It's like it's a real muddy sort of area altogether. But yeah, that's one of the things. Figuring out what are the assumptions that we've been fed, and then what are the assumptions that we have that we've absorbed, and which are the ones that are wrong, and how can we create a situation where we can challenge that assumption. When you're going through therapy, that's one of the first things that in the group that I was in, the incest survivor group, one of the things they talked about was your assumptions about reality that you make when you're in a traumatized situation. So those are your survival tactics and so forth. And identifying what they are helps you to figure out how to challenge them. Like my belief that I was evil at my core and there was nothing I could do about it, and was one of the assumptions I made about reality based on my experience of life and how people treated me and what happened to me and so forth. So that's part of shadow work and a part of personal development, and to be a good magical user, you have to be able to heal yourself, and get to that point and challenge those assumptions about stuff in order to figure out where you want to go and what are the lines, what are the boundaries that you need to have and want to have versus the ones that you've accepted without knowing what they are, that kind of thing. So Josiah says, I really want to learn how to effectively practice these crafts, but I'm feeling drawn to practicing grounding. I've tried different spells, but they haven't come to pass. I'm hopeful grounding helps. Well, sometimes when we cast a spell, the universe is willing to give us whatever we want, providing we will let it, which is what my channeling guiding spirit said. And I think it's true. The problem is us letting it and then knowing what we actually want. So sometimes, if we're not ready for what we want, or it can take a lot longer than we think, there's things that we have to do in order to open up the way and prepare things for that. But grounding is always a good idea. And everyone should practice grounding, because if you're going to bring something physical into the world, you got to understand grounding and the world as it is to start with. So, yeah, the grounding should help. And it definitely gives you more control. So Josiah says, also, how do you raise energy and how do you tell if you've raised energy? Can you tell it from the physical sensation, or is it from spiritual senses that you can tell? Okay, so, uh, well, practicing doing it will start to give you, it's like you're learning a new sense, and you don't know for sure exactly what the sense is. It's kind of like learning how to see color when you've been colorblind for your entire life. It's difficult to explain when you haven't experienced it directly, but it is through experiencing it that you start to get to know it. So when you get together with a group of people, even in casual conversation, there is an ebb and flow to everything. Things will build up to some kind of a crescendo, and then things will fall away and go back down into a quieter space. So no matter what the activity is, you can see that happening in relationships and in conversations and so forth. So when you're doing magic, that's what becoming attuned to feeling that energy rising up and getting more intense, and then as it starts to drop, doing something with it and moving it through. You want to ideally use the energy at its peak, but when you're first learning, sometimes you can't tell that you've passed the peak until the peak starts to fall, and then that's why you practice. So yeah, practice is the only thing.
Well, and maybe reading some of the stuff on prana and apana, the upward going, downward flowing energy, naturally in and breathe out. Look up that prana. They'll give you some exercises and stuff to help you become aware of it.
Yeah, doing the different meditations and breathing exercises will help you get acquainted with your own energy. And then you can use that understanding of your own energetic self and how the world around you affects it as like sort of like, I don't know, a tuning fork kind of thing, where you can feel the vibration working and is moving things along and then slowing down. It's one of those things that it sounds like a bunch of vague terms because it's difficult to explain in anything but vague terms, because energy is like, you know, ephemeral. It's not.
Well, in that sense, it's like air. It exists. You can't see it.
Yeah. So Adam says, hey, Siofra and Ian, so awesome to see you guys today. Hi, Adam. Crystal says, in my sacred space, it feels like the elemental energies don't line up with the traditional directional associations. How important is it to align with traditional ideas about direction elements? I think it's not that important, really, because what you're doing is to work with the element itself. And
Yeah,
the
agree.
direction that we assign to it can make sense for some people, but then other people might have a different association. So there's no right or wrong when it comes to the association. The main thing is working with the actual element and the elemental beings and so forth. And if you're not sure which associations you want to have, you can just sort of call on the elemental heads in general without necessarily assigning them a spot. But you can still imagine that they're making a circle and they can sort of decide where they want to go. I guess that's a good way of doing it.
It's a useful assignment with the Native Americans, assign the elements to different directions. So yeah, it's
And other traditions, newer traditions, assign them based on where you live on the planet. Yeah. So anyway, it's what works in your brain and what works inside of you is what's going to be important, because that's the association that matters. So Crazy Cat says, hello, matey. Hi, Crazy Cat. Violet says, I didn't even know what a Baphomet was 5 years ago. Then I had to overcome the Christian view.
Baphomet's a complicated symbol. No doubt about it.
Yep. And misunderstood for, it wasn't it Eliphas Levi who came up with the Baphomet that they're using now?
Most of them are based on his original drawing. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, So Curious says, have you ever been part of a community or coven, or have you been more of a solo or duo flyer? I find myself struggling without any community. My brain gets distracted without structure support. I've been involved in and leader of several different covens over the years, and I like group work. I always find that group work, when you can get people going in the same direction with their energy, is empowering and very impactful. But personalities are sometimes annoying and distracting. And yes, when you're on your own, it's definitely more difficult to establish a structured pattern and so forth and stick to it. But it can be done. It's a challenge, but it can be done. At the moment, Ian and I are just happy with each other because we know one another's energy and we know what we think and how we feel about stuff and how compatible we are. And so we don't have to like go through explanations or defending our point of view or anything like that, and we just work when we feel like it and work together. So I did a video on Coven or Solitary, and it's got a lot of my experiences in there with both. So you might want to take a look at that to get a bigger picture of what I'm talking about. But yeah. So Adam says, question, I felt a violent pulling, tugging sensation and spontaneously my body jerked forward as I was meditating. Is this a good sign that I was going out of body? What else does this mean and why?
Well, what were you meditating on would be the first question that relate.
And was it a Kundalini can do that. Kundalini will make your body move spontaneously and can often feel external, even though it's not exactly external, although it has sort of an external consciousness independent of its energy source. It's hard to explain.
It's like an intelligent energy that knows what to do to develop your body. It's the energy of evolution.
Yeah. So generally speaking, if something like that happens when you're meditating, it is probably fine.
Yeah, probably a good sign of that. Of course, could be body or, yeah, many options.
Like everything else. Have the options. I guess that's one of the things that we're hoping that we can offer a little bit of support, at least, if not structure, for people who are struggling, trying to figure out what they want to do and the way they want to go. But, it's a solitary path at its core because it's about self-development. It's about becoming more who you are and being in touch with your own nature and deciding if you need to change it or want to change it or if you like where you're at.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention too, just a little bit to some of our other listeners who have been around a while. While I talk about different aspects of Barton and what he does, it's really good to remember that his book on evocation isn't just a teaching. Each one of his books is for individual self-development, including your personality, improvement of your personality, your mind. If you were to focus just on the magical practices, probably won't succeed too well because those magical practices have required you to build up and change your character up to that point.
When it comes down to it, your authority when it comes to magic is based upon your character. You don't have any authority if you don't have good character. So, if you lie and cheat people or, can't keep your word, won't show up when you say you're going to, and so forth. The spirit world knows this. The universe knows this. And so when you say, hey, you have to do what I say because I say it, they go like, oh, really? I don't think so. Because, you never mean anything you say. So it sort of all flows from that internal source. So Curious says, thank you. We'll go and find your video on Coven Solitary. It's gotten better for me since I started doing rituals to full and new moons more regularly. It helps too. Good. The Lavender says, should beginners not do deity work? What do you think about beginners? What do you think about beginners? What they're ready to do?
Deity work is great.
Yeah, it depends on you. I mean, if you don't feel comfortable doing deity work and you feel like you're not ready for it, then don't do it. Some people never want to do deity work. They don't believe in the existence of deities. So they're definitely not.
Yeah, it's one of the safer ways, though, to start in general, unless you're trying to do an invocation of some
Negative being.
negative or mean deity or deity bad qualities.
Yeah, as a beginner in witchcraft, magic, and whatever, finding a good goddess energy to connect to is a good first step, because that gives you, through the goddess energy, you can get both the maiden, mother, crone kind of thing, and if you attach yourself to one of the mother goddesses kinds of things, they tend to be protective and nurturing mostly, and they're not after you, that kind of thing. So they're easy in that sense to work with. You usually don't want to start out of the gate with a dark goddess and chaos and death and destruction and making room for new growth and that kind of thing. You want to start off with something that's going
It's a little milder.
yeah, something that's going to build you up and build up your confidence level, and go like, wow, I'm not alone, and the universe really likes me and loves me, and I'm okay.
Personally, I'm all for Kali as a deity, but you can see the potential difficulties there with some people invoking that force. It has a very frightening image.
Yeah, so that kind of thing. So Adam says, question, is there any specific psychic abilities that not everyone can learn to do? For example, remote viewing. I'm sure any and all of the psychic abilities, there are some people who won't be able to learn how to do them, so I'm not sure how to answer that question.
Yeah, but there's none specific. I mean, generally any person could learn any psychic ability, but you have to have the character for it, you have to have the desire for it, work towards it, get the elemental qualities required to have it.
Yeah, like for example, my granddaughter can hear spirits. This is clairaudience is one of her natural abilities. I found that out when we were on a ghost hunt together. And I don't hear them. I feel them. And because I can feel their feelings, I know what they want to say or what they would say if I could hear them, and then I respond to what I feel. And apparently it makes sense to my granddaughter from what she can hear them say and what I say back. So it works as a communication. But it's like she has a difficult time with imagination, but she has very vivid dreams. So clearly she has a good imagination. And so that's something that she can develop and she can work on. If you have certain physical things that don't work, senses and so forth. If you were deaf, for example, it might be difficult to become clairaudient. Although I don't know that that would be impossible. In fact, for some might be even easier. So I don't know that there's a rule book that says that, this kind of thing won't work if you're like this particular kind of way. But like everything else, some people are naturally more gifted when they're born. And I don't think it's necessarily an accident of birth so much as it usually means that they've done this before. They've done the groundwork. They've already done a lot of that stuff in other lifetimes. And then they come in and they don't have to redo certain parts of it. And they are already there for, understanding things. And it doesn't mean that they're better than anyone else. It just means that, they did all that work already. So, they're at that more advanced level. Like anybody could learn to play the piano. Not everyone wants to learn to play the piano. Not everyone will learn to play the piano well. And of those that can play it well, most of those aren't going to learn to be exceptional piano players. It all depends upon how much focus and attention you put into something as to how well you're going to do and how well you're going to learn it. So like anything else, practice. Practice, practice, practice. And the more experiences you have in that area and the more you practice and figure stuff out, the more you're going to be able to develop those abilities. So Vanessa says, I'm kind of allowing things to draw me to them as far as different types of religions, deities, and entities. There is so much information out there, I don't know where to start my study practice. Well, yeah, and that's actually everyone's study and practice is unique. We're all individual expressions of the universal mind. And
Most important thing is to start.
yeah, anywhere you start is fine. And just because you start in one place doesn't mean you're not going to end up in a completely different place when you're done. You know, like at the moment, I have a rock in my hand, and I think it was last when I was doing the video on magic and fear. This rock started talking to me. It sits over there on the lunar thing, and I got this rock during the harmonic convergence in 1986 in Hawaii, and so right now it's just sort of going with me. I don't know if there's a specific reason or not, or it just wants some attention, or what, But I'm going with it and just sort of going with the flow. And a lot of things happen for me that way. I just suddenly get interested in something or start thinking about something, and then I find out later that there was a reason. So Lavender says, thank you so much. I see the nurturing side of Lady Lilith since I started working with her. So Violet says, is Isis a good goddess energy to begin with?
I would think.
I would think so too. She was definitely a mother goddess and a very powerful goddess. And before the gods came along, she was like the creator of all things. In most of the ancient stories, the goddesses were the only thing that existed for a long time. The gods came later. And then all the stories about them came later too. But yeah, nothing wrong with Isis. She certainly was one of my deities. Vanessa says, I'm seeing, hearing things, but don't know when to trust it is what I'm thinking it is. Makes sense? Any advice that comes to you regarding me? Well, experience is going to be the thing that determines what you can trust about what's happening to you and what not. So skepticism is not a bad thing to have. When something is happening, you can accept it on faith, or accept it for what it presents itself as, but be willing to change your perception of what it is based on new information as you get more experience with it.
Yeah, and always just take everything with a grain of salt, with the idea that you might be making it up, and that's the way I always do it in general. But I've managed to verify a lot of the things that have come to me by looking them up on the internet.
Yeah, you have that really random thing with the strange. Yes,
it's the
thing made out of the top of the
metal and topped with a pine cone.
Yeah, and the whole thing just popped in his head with the name of it and everything. Sometimes you're just tuning into random information and it's not necessarily specific to you. Like you've had some authors that have popped into mind, and then we've looked at them and gone like, yeah,
nothing there, just popped into my head.
Yeah,
random.
Yeah, so Vanessa, a different Vanessa says, have you worked with the Morrigan? No, I haven't. Not that I know of. I've worked with some dark goddesses and lunar goddesses. My first goddess was probably Aphrodite, and then Isis, and I was attracted to the Greek ones, Artemis. Me and Hera never really clicked completely, although her first child, Argus, and I definitely had a strong connection. Yeah, Holly was really my dark goddess that I connected with in the beginning, rather than the Morrigan. And Hecate. There were just so many to choose from, There's an infinite number of them. And Vanessa says, Violet, Voyager, I'm drawn to Isis too, at Violet. And there's lots of V's and Vanessas in here. Yes, there are.
Vanessa and Violet are Voyager.
Yep. We got a lot of V's. Ms. Narco says, thank you for your latest advice with staring at flame to improve my vision. It gave crazy quick effects, but I felt unbalanced. Could you give me advice on how to get balanced with another element?
Sure, exactly the same thing. Stare at a pool of still water, especially if you can get one like a lake in the moonlight or.
Oh, I like that one. I remember doing that in another lifetime. Saw visions and that.
Yep.
Grounding afterwards is the important thing
Yes.
here. I mean, if you're feeling unbalanced, grounding is the way to get yourself back to normal. So if you're feeling like you can take the excess energy in a couple of different ways to get it out of you. You can either put it in a stone and bury the stone, or put the stone in water and let it go away. You can wash your own hands and imagine the water is taking excess energy out of you so you can go back to normal. Eat is always a good thing. It helps to dampen the energy a little bit, helps you get more grounded. Um, yeah, you have to do these things in steps. You don't want to always be in an altered state of consciousness. That would be crazy, because then driving would be almost impossible. And so the trick is to learn how to be able to shift into an altered state when you want to, not have it happen to you when you're not ready for it. Unless it's an emergency and the universe just has to get a point across and says, stop right now or you're going to get killed. And then you go like, okay, I'm stopping. And then, watch an accident happen in front of you or whatever. So, Violet says, to start with Isis, do I light a candle and put scent in the diffuser, or have a conversation, or do I invoke or evoke? Start reading about her, find some poetry about her. She's got some really nice poetry. Get a picture of her, put a picture up of her.
Get acquainted, surround yourself with things that relate, the colors she likes, the items she carries, something like that. All things that help you to relate.
Yeah. You can make a headdress. I actually made an Isis headdress once, put a mirror on the headdress, and, feathers and stuff like that. Whatever helps you get in the right mood and feel connected is what you do. You can make yourself an outfit. She really likes blues a lot, dark blues, and, yeah, so look at some images of her and see what works. Violet says, hi, Nessa. This Narco says, what brings love is from God. What brings fear is human mind. Okay. May May says, is there a way to do a sort of cord cutting between a person and a property? I feel the person's energy is causing the home to fall apart. Are they living on the property or have they left the property? That would be number one. Because if they're living on the property, it might be difficult to do a cord cutting because they're there, and the act of being there is going to activate any cord cutting you do is going to be completely like undone as soon as they step foot on the property. But if they're not on the property, you can do a cord cutting kind of like you would anything else. Tie a cord around them and visualize it going to the property. You could represent the property by like a stone from the property, perhaps, and then physically cut the cord between the two, and then take the stone and put it back on the property, and sort of do a visual separation kind of thing. If they were born there, it might not work, because then they'd have an innate connection to the property. So I'm not sure. It's easier to do with people, and they're complicated as it is. I did one for a friend once. She was having trouble. She had an ex, and every time they got together, they had sex, which kind of undid any cutting that was done. And she really wanted to stop the relationship. It was unhealthy. There were children involved and all this other stuff. And I told her I could do it for her once, but if she reestablished the connection, then I couldn't do it again. So the person needs to want to be disconnected. And it worked for her very well, and then she undid it by getting together with him again. So, it's tricky. Nessa says, hello, Violet. Curia says, there's so many goddesses to choose from, you say, and sometimes they just hit you in the face like, it's me. And it's more, they choose you to choose them. This is true. Adam says, I understand what you are saying about my question, but what I'm really asking is if you think that the most skilless person can reach a level that is equivalent to the most talented practitioner. For example, a savant can calculate 10 by 10 digits easily, and a normal person could never do this. Like a normal person, I assume, can't remote view millions of miles away as compared to a talented one. Well, it depends upon how committed they are to developing the ability, is what I'm saying. And natural ability is assistance, there's no doubt about it, but perseverance and then numbers of times that you've tried it in different lives.
Well, that's exactly it, and that's what I just made a comment on that what Jonathan said. It may take several lives to accomplish. Somebody like Mozart probably had been a pianist or something, or a composer in probably several lifetimes before the one that he got famous in.
Now, isn't he one of the ones who started writing music when he was 5 or something?
Oh, I don't remember the details.
There's a couple of them like that.
But, you know, that's the idea. A lot of that stuff, a lot of the people who seem to be born with very talented in some ways have actually developed those things in past lives.
Yeah.
And they come forward as being easier to do in this life.
So Violet says, is that triangle with black circle always necessary? We didn't have a circle around the triangle. We had the triangle outside of the circle.
Well, yeah, triangle outside the circle, and then inside the circle was a representation of the cosmos in some form. In that case, it was...
Didn't we do the tree of life?
Well, yeah, it was the tree of life in a T symbol as Crowley has it, but I prefer Barden's and stick a pentagram in the middle of the circle now.
So Josiah says, I've demonstrated several different spiritual senses and gifts, which I had ignored and became skeptical of over the years. So did my mother. I was wondering if these traits could be inherited. Well, there seems to be a case for that. It can definitely run in families. It doesn't always have to run in families. I mean, people who have families that don't experience anything like that at all can be born into, and have but it's not just physical connection, but also, the number of lives that someone has had.
And I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't some genetic component that makes a person a lot more sensitive to clairvoyant things.
Well, and also too, if it runs in a family, then there's also sort of a unconscious acceptance of this as a gift and being normal because other people in the family have it, and that can help tremendously when you're born into a family like that. Like my granddaughter saw her spirit animal from the time she was little. She doesn't see him at the moment, but she remembers seeing him, and sometimes he comes and sort of shows himself to me, and then I tell her that he's visited me, and she thinks that's neat that I can see him. I'm the only one who can see him besides her. So, she was raised in an environment with me being around, and I raised her mother in an environment where magic was happening all the time. There was always unusual experiences going on, and it's sort of become a fact of life. So it's not like questioning reality, am I crazy because I experienced this stuff? It's more like, okay, yeah, my mom had that happen too, or my grandmother, or whatever, and I have someone I can talk to about it. So that can make a difference, I think. Violet says that was good information about Isis. Vanessa says there is an Isis Oracle card deck that I work with. It answers my questions incredibly accurately. But I think it's also important how you connected your feel with what you do, how connected you feel with what you do. Ms. Narco says, thank you. Recently I was staring at sun as well. I had unbelievable experiences. I've started to see energies, vibrations of light. And also I realize I can have visions of stuff with open eyes and meditate with open eyes. Yes. So Jonathan.
That's tougher to do, but I used to be able. I haven't tried it for a.
Well, we did it when we were at the open-eyed meditation.
Well, yeah, I guess that's the point.
Because that was open-eyed meditation, which was the entire point.
Good point.
Which was difficult to do, but certainly very interesting. So Jonathan says to Adam, it's an excellent question. I was trying to figure out how I'd explain it. And Siofra's example of playing piano was perfect. There's a chance you can be as good as Mozart, but probably not. And Vanessa said in answer to Violet. And Ian added to Adam, in addition to what Jonathan said, it may take several lives to develop some abilities. Maymay says they live on the property and wasn't sure if it would work. Thank you. I'll brainstorm on something else. yeah, if they're living on the property, it's very difficult to disconnect them from a property that they're walking on, because it's like they're physically connected. So, yeah, you'll have to come from a different angle. Curious says, what in your experience and understanding is the point of everything? Why self-betterment, developing ourselves, etc.? Well, a good question. A lot of people wonder. And, Moira says that life is its own reason for being. And all life comes from love. That love is the energy of creation. So to be in harmony with all that is in existence, the more I can clear out the things that I put in my own way to disconnect and block communication and interaction with creation and the universe at large, the better I feel. And um, and I used to think if the world came to an end, it'd be my fault because I hadn't done enough. And then I realized that the fault would be only mine in my own life if I hadn't done what I could to make myself the best version I could be of who I was. And decided that being in the world, there's no reason not to be kind or to try and help other people when I can and be kind to myself and not overtax myself and not be more responsible for things than I should be, keep me balanced. So, in that sense, I feel like, well, I don't have to think about what I say because of knowing who I am. So I'm always speaking from my center and from who I am and my current understanding of what's going on. So it's okay if I change my mind later because I have new information, more experience, or better understanding. I don't have anything I need to defend to anyone else, and I can just be myself, and that helps me to navigate the world in an easier way. And I like who I am. So if you're going to have to live with yourself, bettering yourself and liking who you are seems like a good start because, you kind of get stuck with what you are and who you are. You can't really get away from it. So in that sense, self-betterment and developing ourselves is the only point that we can do anything with because that's the only thing we have any actual control over is our own actions, our own thoughts and feelings, and how we choose to interact with the universe around us. So the question becomes, would you rather look at the moon and see the silver sparkling light coming down and touching the tops of the trees and the trees getting all excited and wonder, in sharing this energy on this scale and become a part of that and be able to witness that and feel that? Or you want to be by yourself in a closed environment and cutting yourself off from all that is? So I think that being balanced, centered, and grounded is the point. And I've decided for me the point is to have as happy a life as I can under the circumstances I find myself in. And that doesn't mean I don't get angry and annoyed like I did this morning at the pharmacy. They really had me going. I was so mad I wouldn't talk to them at all at the end. It's just like, just give me my stuff and let me out of here before somebody gets hurt. So it's not about perfection, like an artificial form of perfection. It's about acceptance and being you, the best you can be. That's my idea of it anyway. So Vanessa says, I feel drawn. I go first into a search online, finding sources that feel trustworthy and real. ISIS, for example, I read up on what I can find. I read up. That is often where I stall in trusting myself. Well, yeah, the thing is that all those things are, again, interpreted by humans and so forth. If you can make a genuine connection with a god or a goddess energy, then you're going to get new and different information from that interaction that may modify how you see them. Violet says, come back here. So, do I understand you that the black circle inside the triangle is a representative of the cosmos? No.
Well,
The black circle isn't inside the triangle. The triangle is outside of the circle, and you are in the circle, and the triangle is outside on the other side. And inside the circle is where you have the representation of the cosmos. I think we have a communication issue.
Yeah. A circle inside the triangle would symbolize like the macrocosm congealed down. In other words, a circle inside the triangle would be the microcosm or the human being as the representative of God manifested down, because the triangle brings down manifestations. So, yeah, normally the triangle is outside the circle. Person inside the circle is representing God and the deity, and you saying that you never step out the circle means you never lose your contact with the deity superior to the being you're trying to evoke.
Dusty Bookshelf says, I often see animals in people's faces. What does this mean? I have no idea. You have a very good imagination, and some people look like they're pets. Or maybe you're seeing their animal familiar, their spirit animal. I saw 4 deer this morning on the way to Safeway. It was cute.
Okay, cool.
3 had crossed the road, and 1 was on the other side of the road, and the car on the other side had stopped, and so I stopped, and the other deer was like, I don't know if I should cross the road, so I just waited. I'm like, it's okay, you can cross the road, and then the deer crossed the road and joined the other 3, so then everybody was happy. And then we went on. And I was like, yay, little things that make me happy. I was thinking about that. That made me happy. It doesn't take much to make me happy.
Came along.
You had it with you.
Violet asked. Go ahead. Go on.
So Adam says, I read in a book that when you do creative visualization, you are connecting with your higher self, which manifests whatever you imagine. Is this true? What exactly causes manifestation? Okay, so well, I guess creative visualization would be connecting with your higher self, and what you're doing is you're putting out in the universe what it is that you're looking for. And then if everything else is aligned correctly, the universe can provide that for you. But yeah, so what exactly causes manifestation is a complicated question for that, because it's like, it really depends. Did you maybe bring his book back into the house?
I looked
You
inside
looked.
there. I just
Okay.
looked. So I can't find it.
We had it last week, and it was somewhere out here, but I don't see it on the floor. But yeah, manifestation is like it's like a level of attention that goes from the akasha down through the mental plane, through the astral plane, and then into the physical plane. And sometimes what it requires is inspiration, dedication, construction, and then you have it. So, depending on what you're doing, those are just some basic ways of thinking about that. So just the visualization alone is not enough. You have to do things with it, not just visualize. So if you're visualizing like a new job, for example, and you do really great visualization, you have it all together, and then you never do a resume and you never send out any kind of application to get a job, you're not going to be getting a job no matter how good your visualization is. So maybe that helps to separate out some of the pieces, because it isn't just about that. There's more to it. And so Jonathan says, let's not stare at the sun yet. It's bad for your eyes. It can make you go blind. So Violet says, Orobus, the black horse of Goethe, showed up in the triangle for lawn pet. Then there was a concern about the law of conservation and that the sigil could not be seen by anyone else or trouble follows.
I think I could partially answer that. Unfortunately, I couldn't find the book, so I don't know what you mean about the law of conservation. It's hard to explain, but I think what you're talking about on the sigil is that if anybody else got a hold of one of these things, generally, if you make a sigil, you make sure nobody else ever touches it or even sees it. I agree, or it could cause them trouble.
They might not be ready for whatever the energies are.
It seems like he recounts something like leaving one in his guitar or something, and somebody finds it and then had all kinds of trouble.
We had that thing that we made for somebody that they couldn't wear because it was too strong for them, and they had to adjust to it. A protection talisman too. So there's also that basic kind of thing.
Yeah, so I'm not sure about the law of conservation, but yeah, I do know that the times that he has accidentally let a sigil get away has caused various weird coincidences, things, as I believe he counts in that.
You had one of those in, you were staring at in Barden's book, and it started to flash and activate just looking at the picture, which gave you a little bit concern because you weren't in the point where you wanted to make. Wasn't it a Jupiterian being or something? I think. Yeah. So yeah, sometimes that kind of stuff can happen. Okay, so Josiah says, is it possible to unintentionally or intentionally bring harm to someone through magic? And the answer is yes. It is possible, unless their karma is against that happening. It isn't necessarily going to work. I mean, I've had people who are intentionally trying to harm me, and basically all they generally do is harm themselves in the process because of who I am and how I'm not accepting of it. Because there's more than one person involved in this. But a lot of times people will think negative thoughts at someone, and then something bad will happen to them, and they'll jump to a conclusion that the negative thoughts precipitated the negative result, and somehow they're responsible, which is actually giving us more godlike powers than we probably deserve to have, and making us more responsible for things than we actually are, because there's a whole universe here. And it could be like you can have a premonition about something happening, and then something happens. That doesn't mean you caused the something to happen. It means that you foresaw it. And, just thinking about something doesn't make it worse if it's a real thing. Like with COVID, for example, people looking at that and seeing it and deciding what to do about it doesn't mean that they're making the situation worse, because it sort of exists outside of our imagination because it's like physical, real. So it depends on how you mean that. Yeah, I guess that's about all I can say on that at the moment. Ms. Narco says, Jonathan, thanks for your advice, but I feel my body is ready for it. I have such an experience with open eyes. Just staring at the sky, you see different dimensions switching around your vision. Well, I'm hoping that you don't go blind, so. Kyria says, thank you, that was a wonderful answer. I felt that. Good. Now I don't remember what it was about, which is so fascinating. It's an interesting process that we go through here. Ms. Narco says, Josiah, we do magic even when we don't believe in magic, so it's much smarter to learn and start to get your magic the way you want. That's true. Philippa says, hey everyone, I'm late as usual. Hi, Philippa. Glad to see that you're here. Adam says, hey. Philippa says, hey to Adam. Jonathan says, okay, Ms. Narco. I'm just scared you or someone else here does permanent damage to their eyes, but that's just me. And that's a good impulse, because that was what I was told never to do. And I have excellent eyesight as far as the doctors are concerned and for my age. So, yay me. And I see all kinds of stuff. I do open-eyed meditation to the sky, but not at the sun. During the day, looking at a blue sky, and I see all kinds of stuff. But I don't feel like I'm endangering my eyesight when I do that. Vicaria says, at Dusty Bookshelf, my first intuition as well was if you see animals around in people, it might be their guardians. Jonathan says, hi, Phil. Phil says, hi, how are you? Violet says, that was wonderful, Ian. So if I want to evoke a Yeti, for example, and I want him to be super small so I can handle the energy, I can draw a chart so Yeti sees the size I want him to be, an inch tall. Oh, one hopes.
That's about how big that
saber-toothed tiger
I saw once.
Yeah, you saw a very detailed saber-toothed tiger, but he was really little, but extremely detailed, so it's kind of interesting. So Josiah said, thank you, Ms. Narco. I'm just trying to gain as much insight as I can before I begin properly practicing. Jonathan says, I'm well, thank you, Phil, and you. Angela says, hello, Ms. Siofra, and all in chat, blessings. Hi, and then we have the idiots came in again. Crystal says, how do daydreams relate to regular sleeping dreams? When you daydream, are you interacting with the mental plane? Well, when you're dreaming, you're usually are in the astral. So daydreaming probably would be the mental plane, I would assume. And you might get visions and inspiration and stuff that way. Adam says, have you ever seen a wyvern in the astral? If so, where and how exactly similar and different? You've asked this question before and we've answered it. I have seen dragons in person, and I don't care about what they look like if I see them in the astral. I just know what they are. So Jonathan says, hi, Angela. Angela says, horse in the Goetta, does that mean the strange being that is said to come as a unicorn and sing surrounded by lights? That's right, Ian. Violet says. Philippa says, yeah, I'm good, thanks. Just been writing about the odd events which occurred here on Friday. Too much to recount here, though. Well, maybe we can hear about them some other time. Violet says, that is a different horse. Rachel says, hi. Hi, Rachel. Ms. Narco says, Josiah, I respect that. I was doing the same, but recently I've heard this sentence that we do magic since we're born, and it is good to start to do it intentionally. Do you listen to any channelers? I listen to Cryon and have amazing experiences. No, I don't listen to any channelers. I was a channeler for a number of years. I don't feel the need to listen to anyone else channeling because I have my own connection. So, I guess that's a no. The corn is ambitious. Okie dokie. Angela says, oh, different horse, thank you. I was a bit confused, thanks all. Violet says, Lavender says, I've been feeling my third eye opening lately, but I'm not ready for it to open. How do you turn off your abilities so that they don't overwhelm you? Eat. Think of other things. Focus on other stuff. Ground. Any ideas?
I'm not sure I see the difficulty with the third eye opening because it's not just clairvoyance that's considered in the Indian philosophy, as in not Native American, but from India, where you receive your instructions for your higher self. They term as the guru, so they would see it's the place where you see your guru when you see a flame in that spot that doesn't move. I've never heard of anything really being negative about it unless your clairvoyance starts being too intense and you don't want it. I guess I would take a look at Barton's books and start balancing your elements.
Work on something the opposite, something more grounding.
Yeah.
Well, I can understand that the third eye opening can sometimes be overwhelming. Any of the clear abilities can be somewhat overwhelming if they suddenly come out. Because I've had that kind of thing happen to me. So that's one of the reasons why I needed to learn how to ground so that I can be more in control of my abilities. I certainly don't want my third eye open while I'm driving and trying to pay attention to traffic and not wanting to run into people or have them run into me.
I will add that paying attention to your third eye and that spot on your forehead will tend to activate it. So pay attention to someplace else on your body, a different
like
chakra or something.
Like
your navel.
Your navel chakra or your root chakra or your heart
Something
center.
Like that, yeah.
Heart center is a good one because it tends to balance the lower three and the upper three together, and so it sort of creates harmony between them.
I agree.
So if you're having trouble with that, then focus on the heart center, I think. Violet says, how do I make that 1-inch chart? Ideas. Julia said, I love your videos and energy, Siofra. Well, thank you. I'm glad. Adam says, what? You've seen a dragon in person? You mean physically in real life? Well, pretty much. As physical as they can get without actually being physical. But yeah, enough that it can drive you insane if you're not ready for it. So, very vivid. Jonathan says, hi, Rachel. Rachel says, hi, Jonathan. Violet says, Adam, yes, Siofra knows all about the dragon. And that's the thing. It's like ideas of this and that and the other stuff. It's like I deal with the reality of what I've seen and what I've encountered and what I know and what I've done. And the important questions are some of the other questions that you guys ask here. Like, what's the point of it all? And why are we doing this? Why are we trying to better ourselves? Is there a reason for it? Differences between imaginary beings is superfluous, and might be mildly interesting, but not meaty, I guess. Relevant. I really do want to know how to evoke to a very small spot so I can safely see these beings.
Well, generally, if you're doing that,
wouldn't a magic mirror be better?
Well, yes, that's one idea is to view the being in a magical mirror, and evocations in a magical mirror are. Barton talks about those specifically. You can put a magic mirror in the triangle and see the being and talk to it without actually having to evoke it into the triangle. But another thing is, if you're doing an evocation properly, the being should be willing to take the shape and size of the triangle. If you're going to evoke a being, it has to fit in the triangle, but if it's so much that the being finds it difficult, there's not enough space, then they'll have problems being evoked. You have your triangle too small, but generally they'll fit themselves into whatever triangle. But yeah, forget the circle inside the triangle thing, because that's an indicator of the microcosm. What you want is like we said, sorry. So.
Okay, so Philippa says, relating to this week's video, if you can see icky, threatening spirits around a person on the mental plane but not see a cord, how do you drive them away? Well, first, the person who is attracting those icky spirits needs to want them to go away. So it depends on what they represent. If they represent an addiction, for example, unless they want to stop the addictive behavior and go into therapy and become better, then not going to succeed.
Yeah, so if they're thought forms that the person is creating themselves, which could be, then they need to stop the behavior that's creating them, because even if you banish them and get rid of them, they just come right back.
But always, a safe bet to try is like the white light kind of thing. I mean, I've had some encounters, like with my friend who was going insane, former friend, she was a childhood friend, who was down in Los Angeles. Certainly I couldn't get to her, and I couldn't talk to her on the astral or the mental plane because she was in a psychotic state, and I couldn't get through to her. And the only way I could communicate with her was through the Akasha and bring her up to a higher plane and talk to her higher self. So if you think someone is really in trouble and you want to give them a hand, if you can do a meditation where you go to their highest self and have a conversation with them on that level, if it's meant to be, if this is something they're willing to let go of, then that will help. That will help them to, realize what's going on and that kind of thing. And in the case of our childhood friend, it worked. I wasn't sure if it would. She was getting ready to kill herself, and then we lost contact with her for like 6 months. I wasn't sure what had happened, and it turned out that she went and put herself into a treatment program and went to the hospital and got the help that she needed, and now she's stable. So that, or sending them the white light, the selenite is a good example of what that light looks like. And if you can get that light through to them enough, if these are like external to them and they're just sort of pulling them in, the light will change their vibrational frequency to the point where they won't want to hang around unless they have a very firm belief that if they're good and light, that evil wants them, which is a good thing to get rid of. But, not knowing these people, I don't know for sure. But that would be what I would suggest, not knowing the details of your entire thing. They're really trying today, aren't they? It says, I wonder if I could evoke Isis to a little black ball inside the triangle. And I own a teeny tiny triangle and a 2-inch ball. I don't know if that would work.
Well, if you're not trying to evoke to visible appearance, I'd say probably would, but I still say use a scrying mirror.
And besides which, she would much prefer a lapis ball. Thank you very much, if it's Isis. you're going to be putting her in a ball of something, give her the right kind of ball. So it needs to be lapis. Josiah says, during my research of magical practices, I've commonly come across the terms masculine and feminine energies, and I was wondering how these are used in spells and what male gods I could worship. There's a lot of different male gods out there, and the thing is about the pagan male gods. You've got the protector father god, like the Dagda, which is a really good example of the positive male energy, feeding the people and protecting them from danger, and that kind of thing. You've got your sensual, sexually active but not threatening, aggressive gods like Pan or Cernunnos or whatever, who embody that the urge for creative seed to spread and to be involved in the process of creation, life, creating new life, and that kind of thing. So, like with the female goddesses, there's a lot of different ones to choose from. I don't go towards the Christian God because I don't care for his personality. And the first real male god, besides the Pan and Cernunnos, were definitely deities that I interacted with on a regular basis for quite a while. But the first father god I felt comfortable with was the Dagda, because of my negative experiences in this life with my father. Making a connection with the father god was very difficult, and I was very happy when I suddenly realized one day that this felt good. This was a good match.
I'll tell you, I think the idea of an evocation in a little tiny triangle sounds cool. If you manage to succeed, let us know.
Violet says, or is a clear ball better for Isis? Odin. Frying mirror. Lapis ball. Yes. Thor. Yes, there are a lot of different gods out there. Thor, not really a father god. He's sort of more of an excitable kind of thunder guy. But anyway, yeah, there are a lot of different ones. Oh, I would so like to make contact with the Dagda. Yeah, Philippa. Yeah, he's wonderful. I really like him a lot. And he's got some magical accoutrements. He's
my favorite one, Dan.
He has a magic harp that sings the seasons into being. He has a magic staff that will kill the enemies and bring his troops back to life. He has a magic cauldron and 2 magic pigs. So he's always cooking one of the pigs, and there's always another pig getting ready to be cooked. And so there's never a lack of food or sustenance. So there's a lot of wonderful imagery in his stories. He also has that sexual aspect with his conquering of the river women or what have you. So there's definitely that, Cernunnos kind of energy to him as well. But he sort of brings the best of all of them together. Violet says, I just know how dang real they really are, and I have had so much chaos I could fall over. I want to see my beings without injury.
Yeah, I hear
but
that.
I am like a moth to a flame and desire to learn so badly before I pass away.
But I would recommend, really, stop looking at the Goetta and look at Barton's beings, because he only lists the positive, useful, helpful beings, especially a number that are friendly to people specifically. So generally, they have such a good character, you don't have to worry about a problem. They simply will not do something if it's going to cause you a problem, and they will not, they don't have the potential downsides that are reputed to be with the spirits of the Goetta. So you're talking about just positive spirits. Those are the only ones he lists, though mentioning the entire hierarchy of negative spirits. But I'd say in general, they'd be definitely safer to work with, and you won't get the odd experiences like Lon Duquette had of ending up with abramelin oil in his eyes and that whole mess.
That was a bit of a mess. So, Adam says, did you just now say that you met with Pan? Can you tell me what he's like and what he teaches? I was always curious about him. Well, he's kind of as advertised. He's all about nature and, sensuality and exuberance and music and, yeah, sort of hard to say more. Jonathan says, I would be careful about choosing a god or goddess to worship. Choosing one to work with or honor is different. Don't subjugate yourself for no reason.
Yeah,
Good quality qualifier for that, because that's what I would be doing too.
I agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Worship is the wrong word. We don't worship, and we're not under our gods. We are like cohorts.
Yeah, work with.
Yeah. Angela says, I've never been hurt by entities I work with, Violet. Just always be nice and respectful, and don't just dial them up for favors and take time working with them to see how things feel. You should be fine. Violet says, I will do Barden only first, absolutely. Philippa says, the Dagda popped into my thoughts, which I was trying to suppress when I was meditating this week. I couldn't stop laughing. Oh, that's great. Violet says, thank you so much for all this schooling. Excellent job. Thank you, Angela. Iria says, if you want a party, invite Pan and Dionysus. Well, I'm not that fond of Dionysus because I like more control. I'm not total abandon.
So. Yeah, not so much into the liquor and.
Well, I don't. Liquor doesn't like me, so. But whatever works for you. I mean, realize that when you read about their stories, that this is what you're probably tuning and tapping into. So be wary if you have alcoholic tendencies. Not have anything to do with Bacchus or Dionysus, because there you go. Rachel says, Kerninos is great to work with. He is calm and patient, loves a conversation. Yeah, I like Kerninos. I had lots of dreams about him in the beginning, too, when I lived up in the woods. So that was pretty awesome. So we're getting close to our hour and 30 minutes. We've got a couple minutes left. Do you have anything else needing to be said or questions to be answered? Now's the time. I'm ready. I think we're having a good day. Feels like a good conversation today. What are you guys doing for the solstice? Maybe you could tell me. Adam says, do certain spirits never reveal themselves to others unless they feel worthy enough to meet another person? Well, that's probably true. I'm sure there's plenty of different kinds of spirits out there. But Violet says, what are your thoughts on Medusa before she was hurt by man? And yeah, there's controversy in Greece about that story. So I'm not sure exactly, but I think that Medusa makes a really good protection image. Jonathan says, aren't Kerninos, Pan, and the Horn God the same dude? Well, the same kind of dude, yeah. Slightly different versions in different cultures. Pan is Greek, Kerninos is Celtic, and the Horn God is sort of the generic term for all of them. Curio says, at Rachel, he does. I love his energy, although sometimes he's a bit overwhelming for me, which he seems to enjoy too. Violet says, especially, for me especially. Lavender says, I feel like demons would punish you if you give them reasons to. Josiah says, I'm glad I asked about working with gods. Thank you, everyone, for your insights. You're welcome. Angela says, I'm going to be grinding up herbs for spirit foods for solstice, lighting candles for my matron goddess, divining with cards. Sounds like fun. Violet says, protection image. That was great. Rachel says, at Curiel, haha. And Violet says, you guys are so awesome. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate that.
We'd extend that to everybody out there.
We're all trying to figure this out together. So trying not to throw stones. All right, guys. Nice one, Angela, Violet says. I think we're going to do, if we do anything, since it's just going to be us family, I might do the writing down the things I want to leave in the dark and burn it in my cauldron. I might just do that later, just on our own, too. We'll see what my daughter and granddaughter want to do. If my daughter brings her boyfriend, we won't do that. Apparently he's very shy of anything human. So Kyria says, thank you for this talk, both you two and everyone in the chat. Angela says, this has been a fun chat. Everyone here is awesome. Blessings to all. Angela says, and thanks, Violet. You guys are welcome, and thank you for attending. We appreciate it, and it's you guys that make our conversations more interesting and lively. All right, so see you all later. Have a happy solstice, and I hope you all enjoyed your full moon. Bye-bye.